Hey everyone, I want to take you on a voyage through time and space tonight as you become comfortable in the stillness of the evening. It's a much more elegant and enigmatic journey than the hectic, explosive ones you might see in science fiction movies. Even though it's happening so slowly that entire civilizations could rise and fall before anyone noticed, it's something that is actually happening right now. Before we commence further in together, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe, and I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now imagine yourself gazing up at the stars on a clear night while standing in your backyard. Our home galaxy, the Milky Way, is home to those far-off spots of light that are strewn like diamonds on black silk across the velvet darkness. Stretching 100,000 light years from edge to edge, it is a stunning spiral of 400 billion stars. In what scientists refer to as the most exquisite cosmic ballet ever orchestrated, our galaxy is currently dancing through space alongside another galaxy as you read these words. But what if that dance picked up speed all of a sudden? What if, when you woke up for coffee tomorrow, our Milky Way collided with its partner instead of continuing its slow 4.5 billion year waltz? Andromeda, our closest galactic neighbour, is the partner in this cosmic dance. She's currently travelling at a speed of about 250,000 miles per hour, which seems incredibly fast until you consider that she won't reach us for almost 5 billion years at such great distances. In actuality, Andromeda is bigger than our Milky Way, with possibly 1 trillion stars as opposed to our galaxy's 400 billion. Her spiral arms are more than twice as wide as our own galaxy, spanning 220,000 light years. Before we dive into our hypothetical collision, allow me to explain what makes this scenario so intriguing. In our thought experiment tonight, however, let's condense all that time into a single day and investigate what would happen in the most spectacular cosmic event imaginable. Galaxies are not made of solid material. They resemble, on a summer evening, picture a swarm of fireflies, each of which follows its own course while continuing to be a part of a larger, loosely organised group. Even though there are hundreds of billions of stars in our Milky Way, the distance between them is so great that the closest star would still be more than 4 miles away if our sun were reduced to the size of a grain of sand. This indicates something amazing. Stars hardly ever actually collide when galaxies collide. It's similar to seeing two swarms of gnats merge on a warm evening. They rarely come into direct contact with one another, but they move through one another, mix and dance. It is a gravitational, not a mechanical collision. Instead of a cosmic car crash, it's a rearranging of cosmic choreography. To get a sense of the magnitude of the situation, think about this. Even if you were to travel at the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second, it would still take you 100,000 years to go from one spiral arm to the other in our galaxy. Any distance we perceive on Earth is dwarfed by the vast distances between stars. Proxima Centauri, the closest star to our Sun, is located 25 trillion miles away. If Earth were a marble, Proxima Centauri would be another marble 2,500 miles away. These distances produce a strange kind of collision in which the participants hardly notice one another on a personal level, but collectively alter the entire structure of their cosmic neighbourhood. It's as if two enormous cities decided to merge, with the majority of the inhabitants carrying on with their daily lives, while the overall map of streets and neighbourhoods gradually changed around them. Are you currently gazing out your window at real stars, or are you dreaming of darker skies because of the lights of the city? Do you live somewhere where the nights are really dark, and you can see the Milky Way's band extending like a river of light above you? Let's now enter our improbable situation. You get up in the morning, make your coffee, and go outside. If you like dawn skies and are an early riser, you may notice right away that something has changed. You've noticed a change in the constellation patterns you've known your entire life. Rearranging furniture in a room changes its appearance, but not dramatically, not like someone shaking a snow globe. The Andromeda Galaxy, which is larger than our own Milky Way, but is typically too faint to be seen with the naked eye, would now take up a sizable amount of the sky. Imagine a full moon that is 20 times larger and stretched into a graceful spiral, This ghostly spiral would be visible even during the day as a faint shimmer against the blue sky, resembling mother-of-pearl catching light. It would be easy to see the spiral structure, with two separate arms extending from a bright central bulge and dotted with dark dust lanes that form complex patterns resembling cosmic calligraphy. Though not in the disastrous way you might anticipate, the gravitational effects would be immediate and significant. The Sun would keep orbiting what was once the center of the Milky Way, and Earth would stay in its orbit around the Sun. However, as two galactic cores start their own complex dance, that center itself would be changing. Imagine being on a cosmic balcony and watching this collision unfold over the course of a single day instead of billions of years. The supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, which weighs 4 million times more than our Sun, would be in a gravitational tango with Andromeda's even more massive central black hole, which tips the scales at perhaps 100 million solar masses. In slow motion, spiral arms would be seen bending and stretching like taffy. Tidal tails are long, elegant ribbons of stars that flow between galaxies. Some would be cast into the emptiness, wandering the space between clusters of galaxies as cosmic nomads. Others would find themselves in stellar neighborhoods they had never been in before, settling into new orbits around the merged galactic center. The most dramatic event would occur when the two supermassive black holes at each galaxy's centers started their final approach to one another. Space would be stretched and compressed as gravitational waves from this cosmic pas de deux moved through it, causing ripples in space-time itself. If we had instruments sensitive enough, we might be able to detect these gravitational waves as a gentle pulsing, like a cosmic heartbeat from Earth. These waves would travel at the speed of light, carrying energy equal to the brightness of billions of suns, but passing through matter so gently that we would hardly notice their passage. The waves would convey details about the masses and spins of the black holes, the exact time of their merger, and even the behavior of space-time itself in such harsh circumstances. Listening to the universe itself sing the song of creation and destruction would be like that. However, this is where our story unexpectedly shifts from the catastrophic to the gentle. Galactic collisions would be much more peaceful in reality than in science fiction, which frequently depicts them as explosive catastrophes. It is possible that certain star systems will be hurled to the outskirts of the new, bigger galaxy. Yes, new constellations and stellar neighborhoods would permanently alter the night sky. However, because of the great distances I just described, life on Earth would probably continue, possibly oblivious to the cosmic renovation taking place all around it. The majority of space is empty, even more so than the most ideal vacuum that can be produced in earthly labs. In reality, when galaxies merge, they are merely rearranging the space between objects. Much like when a large library is reorganized, with the books representing stars and the shelves representing gravitational fields. The books themselves don't change, they just end up in new parts of a larger library. Our Sun may end up in a different galaxy. Consider that for a moment as you become more comfortable with tonight's story. Rather than being situated in what we call the Orion Arm, a relatively quiet spiral arm about halfway out from the galactic center, we might wind up closer to the core of the new merged galaxy, which astronomers have already dubbed Milky. The night sky would blaze with more stars. The Milky Way band we see arcing overhead would be brighter and more complex, and space exploration would suddenly have many more interesting nearby destinations. From a cosmic standpoint, the collision that appears so dramatic and violent would actually present opportunities. Gas clouds may be stirred by gravity to form new solar systems. New stellar companions would join stars that had been alone for billions of years. Given that nearby star systems are now thousands of times closer than they are now, the increased star density in our area may make interstellar travel more feasible for future generations. This realization is incredibly reassuring. Even in its most dramatic moments, the universe is more inclined toward creation than destruction. What about the specifics of day-to-day existence during our hypothetical collision? Galactic collisions are cosmic collaborations rather than cosmic crashes, combining the resources and potential of two stellar communities to produce something bigger and more intricate. Starting with that first cup of coffee we mentioned, let's take a look at a normal day on Collision Earth. The morning sun would rise as usual, but astronomers around the world would be giddy with anticipation. Our most sensitive instruments would detect the collision's gravitational effects, but Earth's orbit would stay stable. Because it is neither too hot nor too cold, our planet is located in what astronomers refer to as the habitable zone around our sun, which is ideal for the existence of liquid water. The coffee would taste the same, and this Goldilocks zone would not change during the merger. When the birds sensed something significant happening in the world, they might sing their morning songs a little more urgently. Though their astronomy classes would suddenly become much more exciting than anyone had anticipated, children would still need to be prepared for school. The amazing thing about cosmic events is that they can be both the most significant thing occurring in the universe and wholly unrelated to whether you remembered to feed the cat. Updates from observatories all over the world would be broadcast on radio. Radio emissions from the collision zone would be monitored by the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Unprecedented images of galactic structure in real-time transition would be captured by the Hubble Space Telescope. By afternoon, amateur astronomers would be putting up record numbers of telescopes, and the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory would be detecting space-time ripples with exquisite precision, providing a soundtrack to go along with the visual spectacle overhead. There would be nothing like Andromeda ruling the sky in human history. Imagine attempting to see the entire spiral structure with your eyes. It would be similar to trying to view the entire facade of a magnificent cathedral while standing too close to it. To fully appreciate the majesty, the human eye would have to move back and forth. Professional observatories would be working overtime, abandoning their schedules entirely to document this unprecedented event. Binoculars would reveal individual star-forming regions in Andromeda's spiral arms, glowing clouds of gas where new stars are being born from the gravitational compression of the merger. As the two galaxies collided, radio telescopes would be listening for cosmic static, detecting signals from compressed and heated gas clouds. As the gravitational environment changed and evolved, X-ray telescopes would be monitoring for the high-energy signatures of matter falling into black holes. The internet would be both thriving and collapsing as billions of people attempted to share pictures, videos, and thoughts about what they were seeing. Even though most cameras couldn't fully capture the subtleties of what the human eye could see, amateur astronomy photos would be all over social media. For traditional photography to capture the collision, it would be too big, too diffuse, and too elegant. Universities would be hosting emergency seminars and hurriedly planned lectures where professors attempted to explain what was happening to audiences of captivated students and inquisitive members of the public. Long exposure photographs might be able to capture some of the fainter details, but they couldn't replicate the experience of watching two galaxies dance together across the sky in real time. People would cram themselves into planetariums in an attempt to comprehend the cosmic event taking place above them. With their astronomy exhibits suddenly more relevant than ever, science museums would be staying open later. The most amazing show would be presented in the evening. Like a permanent aurora, the combined light of our merger partner would cast a soft glow on the horizon as the sun sank. The gradual appearance of Andromeda's spiral arms in the fading sky would be a new stage in the typical progression from daylight to twilight to complete darkness. For the first time in human history, people could point to another galaxy and see its individual bright stars with the naked eye. The transition would be incredibly beautiful, like someone gradually turning up the dimmer switch on a cosmic chandelier. Without telescopes, the Andromeda red giants and blue supergiants would have appeared as jewels on dark velvet in the night sky. Children would grow up learning new constellations, combinations of Milky Way and Andromeda stars creating patterns no human had ever seen. The bright blue stars would indicate regions of active star formation, while the cooler red giants would reveal older stellar populations, creating a complex picture of Andromeda's history written in starlight. As bright newcomers from our galactic neighbour join familiar star patterns, traditional constellation names would no longer be sufficient. As humanity tried to make sense of a changed sky, new myths and stories would emerge. The psychological effects would be significant. We have gazed up at a night sky that is solely the property of our home galaxy for the entirety of human history. All of a sudden, we would be looking at the stars and the story of another galaxy. It would be similar to discovering that a whole new community had moved in next door overnight, bringing with it their own architecture, culture, and mysteries. Scientists would be working non-stop, recalculating everything. Star charts would require a thorough overhaul. Updates would be necessary for navigation systems that depend on stellar positions. As gravitational forces moved celestial landmarks, the meticulously charted cosmic distances that serve as the basis for contemporary astronomy would have to be recalculated. Since Earth's reference frame changed slightly in response to the shifting galactic gravitational field, the global positioning system satellites would require minor adjustments, and the parallax measurements we use to calculate distances to nearby stars would need to be redone as our reference frame shifted within the merging galaxy. The fact that we could even detect such subtle effects is a testament to the accuracy of modern technology, but GPS is precise enough that even slight variations in Earth's orientation with respect to far-off quasars would need to be corrected. Airlines would have to update their navigation systems, and the atomic clocks on GPS satellites, which depend on relativistic effects to remain precise, would have to be recalculated for the new gravitational environment. At sea, ships' celestial navigation would be a little off, but not enough to be a major issue. Mission planners would have to take into consideration the slowly changing positions of guide stars used for spacecraft orientation, but the ISS would continue to orbit the Earth as usual. Perhaps the most stunning change would be in our understanding of our place in the universe, but astronauts on the station would have perhaps the best seats in the house to watch the galactic merger, with their view unhindered by Earth's atmosphere. We currently consider ourselves to be Milky Way citizens, living in one galaxy out of hundreds of billions. We would be residents of Milky, a galaxy formed by the union of two old stellar communities following our hypothetical collision. There would be twice as many stellar ancestors, twice as many cosmic neighbours, and twice as many opportunities for further research. The merger would also produce previously undiscovered kinds of celestial objects. Unlike anything that occurs in isolated galaxies, waves of star formation are triggered when gas clouds from two galaxies collide and compress. We may see the birth of enormous blue stars that burn brightly and quickly, illuminating vast swaths of space with their brilliant light despite only having a few million years to live. Some of these stellar nurseries would be visible to the unaided eye as glowing nebulae, cosmic clouds illuminated from within by newborn stars. These stellar giants would be visible even during the day, appearing as bright blue points against the azure sky. All of this star formation activity would create a faint background glow in the night sky, making even nights without the moon a little brighter than they are now. The Hubble Space Telescope and its successors would have their observation schedules totally transformed, and the increased light pollution from cosmic sources would be a welcome change. Rather than obscuring the stars, it would make them more numerous and brilliant. Astronomers would be examining the merger occurring nearby galaxies rather than pointing at far-off galaxies to learn more about how they merge. New findings about how black holes affect galactic structure, how gravity shapes stellar streams, and how the interstellar medium reacts to such enormous gravitational disruptions would be made every night. New instruments created especially to observe the ongoing collision would be added to ground-based telescopes. Specialized spectrographs would be installed on Chile's Very Large Telescope to examine the light from merging stellar populations. There would be practical considerations as well, of course, but the Atacama Large Millimeter Array would be mapping the cold gas and dust being stirred up by the gravitational encounter, revealing the raw materials from which new stars would eventually form. As the gravitational environment changed, satellite navigation systems would have to be adjusted. The shifting locations of celestial markers would have to be taken into consideration for long-term space missions. However, these are the kinds of issues that engineers are excited about rather than concerned about. Technical problems that push the limits of what is feasible. The sky would suddenly become much more interesting for the Mars missions that space agencies have been planning. As our solar system moves through the collision zone, Earth and Mars are both taking part in this cosmic dance. Future astronauts on the Red Planet would look up at night and watch the merger progressing from a slightly different perspective. The Earth's climate would essentially remain the same, but the thin Martian atmosphere would allow for even clearer views of the galactic merger than Earth's thicker atmosphere does. The impact is structural and gravitational rather than energetic enough to change the weather or temperature of our planet. Because of Earth's 23.5-degree axial tilt in its orbit around the Sun, the seasons would continue their well-known cycle. The Coriolis effect and temperature variations would drive ocean currents to follow their predetermined patterns. The cultural impact would be immediate and significant, but the delicate balance that makes Earth habitable would endure through the cosmic renovation taking place all around us. Any religion or mythology that uses the stars as part of its cosmology would have to suddenly explain a drastically altered sky. Astrologers would be completely perplexed, their ancient systems based on the positions of stars that were no longer in their traditional locations. The Big Dipper, which has been visible from Earth's northern hemisphere for thousands of years, might find itself joined by bright stars from Andromeda, creating new patterns that children would learn as naturally as their predecessors learned the old constellations. Despite their centuries-long separation, the collision would demonstrate how much both astrology and astronomy rely on the apparent stability of star positions over the course of human lifetimes. The cosmic merger would surely have mystical meaning for practitioners of the New Age, who would develop completely new systems of stellar divination based on the combined influences of two galaxies. The slowly changing patterns of light overhead would provide artists with previously unheard of inspiration. The delicate beauty of spiral arms extending across the sky would be difficult for painters to depict. The gravitational waves singing through space-time would inspire musicians to create symphonies. If you're still with me on this voyage through space and time, maybe you're wondering about the deeper implications of what we're imagining. Poets would find new metaphors in the cosmic dance surrounding Earth, drawing comparisons between galactic merger and human relationships, as well as between stellar streams and the flow of emotion. What would it mean for humanity if our cosmic environment underwent such a significant change? Human thought has undergone revolutions throughout history as a result of significant changes in our understanding of the universe. Our understanding of our place in creation was drastically altered when Copernicus demonstrated that the Earth orbits the Sun rather than the other way around. Hubble's discovery that there are galaxies beyond our own broadened our understanding of the cosmic scale beyond anything we could have ever imagined. We gained a new perspective on time and cosmic evolution when we discovered that the universe is expanding. Our hypothetical galactic collision would symbolize another such change. We would be observing cosmic evolution on a human timescale for the first time. We would be experiencing a galactic merger rather than learning about it from remote observations and computer simulations. It would give the universe a more immediate, intimate, and less abstract feel. The philosophical ramifications would be profound. The cosmos would no longer be something we view from afar, but rather something we actively engage with. Religious leaders' conceptions of the natural order or divine plan would have to take this cosmic event into account. The union of the two cosmic communities may be interpreted by some as a symbol of world peace. Others may see it as proof of creation's impermanence and ongoing change. Children born after the collision would grow up with a fundamentally different relationship to the night sky, and scientists would struggle with being participants in the very phenomenon they study, going from observers to actors in the cosmic drama. These kids would navigate using combinations of Milky Way and Andromeda stars, whereas earlier generations learned to locate the Big Dipper and Orion as well-known guides. If we can imagine galaxies having traditions, then characters from two distinct galactic traditions would appear in their bedtime stories about constellations. Schools would require new textbooks, planetariums would require new shows, and science museums would require new exhibits. They would be genuinely intergalactic citizens, at home among stars from various cosmic communities. People were so captivated by the shifting sky above them that the collision would produce a whole generation of amateur astronomers. As families attempted to obtain better views of the cosmic merger taking place around them, telescope sales would soar. The merger would speed up some aspects of astronomical research that currently take decades or centuries, and astronomy clubs would grow at an unprecedented rate as people tried to comprehend and share the experience of seeing such a rare cosmic event. Similar to how we examine photos of people of different ages to comprehend how humans develop and change, we currently study galactic evolution by observing different galaxies at different stages of development. Universities would create new departments for collision astronomy or real-time galactic studies. Graduate students would write dissertations on aspects of the merger that no human had ever been able to study before. We would be observing galactic evolution in real time during our collision, collecting data about gravitational interactions, star formation, and cosmic structure that would typically take thousands of lifetimes to collect. The entire framework for understanding our place in the cosmic hierarchy would change from Earth orbits the Sun, which orbits in the Milky Way galaxy, to something more complex and dynamic. Earth orbits the Sun, which is finding its new place in Milky, the galaxy being born from the merger of our former home with our cosmic neighbour. Children would grow up with a more nuanced understanding of cosmic change and evolution than any previous generation. Not only would textbooks need to be completely rewritten, but completely new fields of knowledge would need to be created based on direct observation of galactic merger physics. In order to observe the merger from various perspectives and produce a three-dimensional map of how galaxies merge in ways that have never been possible to study before, we would want telescopes placed throughout the solar system. Astronomical observation equipment would be part of missions to Jupiter's moons. Beyond the practical and scientific ramifications, there is something profoundly poignant about envisioning such a transformation. Mars colonies would be founded in part to act as observation posts for research on the ongoing galactic collision. It would serve as a reminder of the universe's true dynamic nature, showing how even the most ostensibly permanent structures, galaxies themselves, are merely transient configurations that are always changing and evolving. Galaxies appear eternal on our normal timescale, but in reality, they are racing through space at hundreds of miles per second, taking part in a cosmic dance so grand that we can only see it through patient observation and careful measurement. Throughout human history, the Milky Way has essentially remained the same, and we anticipate that it will continue to do so into the future. However, our thought experiment serves as a reminder that even galaxies are transient. As the universe continues its own evolution toward an uncertain but fascinating future, they form, evolve, merge, and eventually, in the far future, face other fates. Strange as that may sound, there is solace in this impermanence. It implies that the natural order includes change, even significant change. It implies that disruption can result in previously unimaginable beauty, opportunities, and arrangements. After our galactic collision, the night sky would be more intricate, more layered with story and history than the comparatively simple spiral we see today. The universe has a magnificent ability to bring order out of seemingly chaotic chaos and to discover new ways to arrange matter and energy into intricate, beautiful, and meaningful patterns. We'd have 2 galaxies worth of stellar archaeology, the chronicle of star birth and death etched across the heavens, rather than just one galaxy's. Imagine the poetry that would arise from such a sky, where each point of light would carry a richer backstory that would connect us to a larger community of cosmic citizens, each with their own histories of planet formation, stellar evolution, and possibly even the emergence of life. People have been inspired by the stars for thousands of years, and they have made up myths and stories to explain the patterns they have observed in the sky. There would be completely new patterns to decipher, new tales to narrate, and new myths to construct after our collision. The merger would alter our perception of time itself, and the creative impact alone would make the cosmic upheaval worthwhile. Artists and writers would find new inspiration in the redesigned heavens. Significant events in human civilization today are measured in centuries or millennia. We would gain a visceral understanding of cosmic time, geological time, and the deep time scales that govern the universe as a result of the collision. This temporal perspective would be both empowering and humbling, as we would be witnesses to an event that takes longer than most species exist, condensed into a time frame we can understand and experience firsthand. Humbling, since it would serve as a reminder of how fleeting human lives are in comparison to cosmic processes. Our hypothetical merger would take place over a period of millions of times longer than the history of human civilization. However, it would also be empowering because it would show that humans can comprehend and forecast events on a much larger scale than what we can directly experience. The collision would also show how interconnected cosmic structures are. The merger would show how galaxies are connected by gravity over great distances, how they affect one another's evolution, and how the universe is more like a web of relationships than a collection of distinct objects, something we often think of as isolated island universes. From a technological standpoint, the merger would spur advancements in observation and measurement. The Milky Way, Andromeda, and dozens of smaller galaxies make up the local group of galaxies, which would emerge as a gravitationally bound community with its own intricate dynamics and evolutionary history. To investigate gravitational effects in real time, we would create new kinds of instruments. To forecast the evolution of stellar streams, we would develop more accurate computer models, perhaps employing networks of space-based telescopes functioning as interferometers with previously unheard of resolution. We would devise novel techniques to map the three-dimensional structure of the merging galaxies. The data storage needs alone would be astounding. Every significant observatory on the planet would be gathering previously unheard of volumes of data regarding the collision, building archives that would occupy scientists for decades. In just 1 year, the merger would produce more astronomical data than we currently gather over many decades. To make sense of the deluge of information, new methods for data analysis and pattern recognition would have to be created. As our hypothetical journey draws to a close, it's amazing to think about this. Although we've been speculating about what might happen if this collision happened tomorrow, the actual collision is already happening. Andromeda is currently traveling at that constant 250,000 miles per hour toward our galaxy as you read these words. This collision will actually occur somewhere in the far future, long after our sun has run out of fuel, and long after Earth has undergone changes due to stellar evolution. The gravitational dance has already started, but it is so subtle that it requires highly advanced instruments to detect. Though not in a single day, but over millions of human lifetimes, the night sky will change in the ways we have been envisioning. The amazing merger we can only imagine will be witnessed by future beings, whether they are human descendants or completely different forms of life. That timeline is both inspiring and humbling. It serves as a reminder that we are all a part of a greater story than our own lives, one that is longer than human civilization, and one that is grander than anything we can directly experience. However, we are advanced enough to foresee it, envision it, and appreciate the beauty of the concept. The collision also emphasizes one of the most amazing aspects of contemporary astronomy, our capacity to predict the future. We have evolved into cosmic fortune tellers, deciphering the future from the current positions and velocities of celestial objects. We are able to forecast cosmic events billions of years ahead of time by using mathematical modeling and meticulous observation. We know when galaxies will merge, when planets will be engulfed by their expanding suns, and when stars will run out of fuel. We are now citizens of deep time, having transcended the immediate present. This ability to predict the future offers us a distinct viewpoint on time itself. Astronomy allows us to comfortably consider billions of years, whereas the majority of human experience is focused on timescales of minutes, hours, days, or at most decades. By stretching our temporal imagination, it makes us citizens of cosmic time as well as of the present. The merger would also reveal something lovely about the nature of cosmic change. We can think back on events that took place before Earth formed and forecast events that will happen long after our planet is gone. The galactic collision would demonstrate that cosmic change can be gentle and creative, despite the fact that we typically think of astronomical events as violent and destructive. Stars exploding, black holes consuming matter, planets being torn apart. As we conclude our journey through this imagined galactic collision, I want you to go outside tonight, if the weather permits, and gaze up at the real sky above you. The universe has ways of changing itself that preserve beauty while creating new complexity. All of the stars you see are residents of our Milky Way galaxy, dispersed in their well-known patterns. However, keep in mind that many of those same stars will still be shining in about 4 billion years, albeit in different configurations as part of the merged galaxy Milky. The photons of starlight that are touching your eyes tonight have travelled for years, decades, or even centuries to get there. When the galaxy was arranged slightly differently and the stars were in slightly different positions, they left their stellar sources. In the current sky, you can see the history of our galaxy written in light. When you look up again tomorrow night, keep in mind our thought experiment. That light contains information about stellar composition, temperature, age, and motion. A cosmic library written in the language of electromagnetic radiation. Imagine the spiral arms of an approaching galaxy filling the sky. Imagine brand new constellations composed of stars from two distinct cosmic communities. The universe has spent almost 14 billion years organizing matter into ever more intricate and exquisite patterns. Think about the gentle nature of even the most dramatic cosmic events and how change, even galactic change, tends toward creativity rather than destruction. Our galaxy is one of the most spectacular examples of these configurations, with hundreds of billions of stars arranged in elegant spirals, dotted with planets, moons, and perhaps even life. Instead of destruction, two such arrangements combine to create a new kind of beauty, a more intricate pattern, and a richer narrative written in gravity and starlight. However, our hypothetical collision would also serve as a profound reminder of what home is all about. Earth would continue to be Earth. The Sun would continue to be the Sun. The orbital dance of the solar system would essentially remain unaltered. The collision would teach us that home is portable. It turns out that home is defined by the local relationships that sustain us, not by the galactic neighborhood we happen to find ourselves in. These relationships include the magnetic field that shields us from harmful radiation, the gravitational embrace between Earth and Moon, and the ideal distance from our star that keeps liquid water. Because we would still have each other, the blue marble of Earth spinning in the black emptiness, and the familiar face of the Moon lighting our nights, we would still feel at home as our solar system finds its new home in Milky. Perhaps the most consoling lesson from our thought experiment is that although the cosmic addresses may change, the fundamental relationships that enable life would not. Even the most significant cosmic shifts take place in ways that protect the most significant things. The universe appears to be biased in favor of continuation, looking for ways to keep complex systems going while their surroundings change. If you've enjoyed this cosmic journey tonight, please let me know where you are in the world and what you see when you look up at your local portion of the Milky Way's spiral arms. Life finds a way, not just in the biological sense, but also in the broader sense that complexity and beauty persist through cosmic change. Are you in a city where only the brightest stars shine through the light pollution? Or are you in a place with dark skies and the galaxy's band of light stretching overhead? Though it would appear differently depending on your latitude and the season, the collision we have envisioned would be equally stunning from anywhere on Earth. The merger would progress differently for someone observing from the northern hemisphere than for someone observing from the southern hemisphere. The last thing I want to say to you tonight is that the entire planet would turn into a single observatory, and 7 billion people would be there to witness the most amazing cosmic event in the history of the universe. Instead of being destructive, change, even drastic change, can be constructive. In addition to rearranging our cosmic neighborhood, the merger we have envisioned would bring together previously disparate star communities, opening up new opportunities and beauties. Even when, especially when, the universe is going through its most drastic changes, it would serve as a reminder that we live in a universe that tends toward greater complexity and beauty. As you go to sleep tonight, you might dream of spiral galaxies dancing through space, of star streams flowing between cosmic partners, or of a night sky with twice as many stellar neighbors as we currently have. The Milky Way and Andromeda are already starting their slow dance toward merger, and we are fortunate enough to be conscious observers of this cosmic ballet. It's a gentle way to end our journey, with the knowledge that even the most dramatic events in the universe can unfold with grace and beauty, creating new wonders instead of destroying old ones. Sweet dreams, and may your sleep be filled with the soft motion of galaxies, discovering new ways to shine together in the vast, creative darkness of space. We can make predictions about its outcome, envision its beauty, and take solace in the knowledge that the universe is constantly creating new arrangements of matter and energy that fill the darkness with light. Keep in mind that you are composed of star material and that you are a planet orbiting a star in a galaxy that is presently performing the most exquisite dance the universe has ever produced. The idea of cosmic metamorphosis, where the impossible is possible and the sky has twice as many stars as it does tonight, is a lovely one to carry into sleep and dreams.
Imagine now entering a doorway in time as well as space. Here, the air feels different, crisp, with an old world energy that makes your arms stand on end. This valley was somehow traversed by the great dying that took the mammoths, cave bears, and giant ground sloths, and you find yourself on the edge of a world that never quite let go of its ice age giants. You see shapes that shouldn't be there as the morning mist rises from a river that has no name in any contemporary language. A family of woolly rhinoceroses glides through the tall grass at a leisurely pace, their thick coats shining with dew. Like ancient ivory sculptures, their horns gleam in the early morning light. The ground trembles a little in the distance, not from an earthquake, but from the deliberate steps of something impossibly large moving toward the water's edge. It could have been, but this is not our world. The great extinction that struck the planet some 12,000 years ago never quite finished its job on this planet. Humans learned to coexist with creatures that seem to have been lifted from both nightmares and dreams, and Pleistocene-era pockets persisted like lost chapters in an ancient book. Even in the dead of winter, the village remains warm because it is situated in a natural depression between two hills that perfectly directs the wind. Now, however, it is not winter. Rather, it is the season known to the locals as the growing light, when the sun continues to shine longer each day and the ice flowers in the fields outside the settlement start to bloom. As it has for generations, morning arrives here with gentleness. Though she stopped counting years ago when the number reached more fingers than she could spare, Nayeli is always the first to rise. The cold stone floor of her home aggravates her joints, but they have been complaining about it for decades, and she has learned to ignore them. She steps into air so pure, it seems to ring like a bell, pushing aside the mammoth hide that acts as her door. Below her, the village stretches out, maybe 30 houses made of wood, stone, and bone, their roofs covered in grass and dirt. A number of chimneys emit smoke, but it's not the sharp stench of anything burning that shouldn't be there. Rather, it's the sweet smoke of pine and dried mammoth dung. The grazing grounds where the most eccentric people in the village spend their nights are visible from Nayeli's doorway. Three young mammoths stand close to a group of birch trees, hardly bigger than the elephants you might see in zoos around the world. They touch each other in what appears to be conversation as their trunks move continuously, testing the air. They were born here, raised with human children, and fed by human hands when their own mothers were unable to produce enough milk, so they are not wild animals. Even after all these years, the sight continues to amaze her. One of the first people to suggest that they might not have to hunt every big animal they came across was her great-grandfather. In order to benefit both species, maybe some could be brought close, given care, and permitted to coexist with humans. Back then, it had seemed impossible. Now, it seems like the most natural thing in the world to watch a human toddler giggle close by as a mammoth calf tosses dirt onto its back. But coming to this realization had not been simple. The ancient tales, the ones that have been handed down through the ages like priceless jewels, describe the period of education, when people first realized that they were living in a world with minds that were different from their own, but still minds. As usual, the morning routine starts. With arms full of wild grasses and new branches, Kyle, one of the village's beast speakers, approaches the mammoth enclosure. He moves deliberately and walks slowly. The mammoths are familiar with him and have faith in him, but daily respect needs to be reaffirmed. The largest of the three, a female they refer to as Stormwalker because of her apparent ability to forecast weather patterns, greets him by extending her trunk. Since he was just old enough to walk steadily, Kale has worked with mammoths. Before him, his father, and before that, his father's father had been a beast speaker. Although the ability isn't strictly inherited, it appears to run in some families like a river that travels the same path. Above all, it takes patience. The patience to realize that, depending on its pitch and duration, a mammoth's rumbling can indicate warning, greeting, contentment, or hunger. The forbearance to realize that what appears to be stubbornness may actually be an effort to convey a crucial message. Placing the fodder aside, he presses his hand to Stormwalker's side and feels her heart's slow, strong beat. As is typical for her kind, she has been pregnant for almost 2 years. If everything goes according to plan, the village will welcome its first mammoth born solely under human care in a few months. He feels proud and anxious at the same time. Although they have gained a great deal of knowledge about maintaining the health and happiness of adult mammoths, bringing a new life into the world is always a risk. Other villagers start their daily chores as the sun rises higher. Human voices and the occasional trumpet call of a mammoth blend with the sound of stone tools cutting wood and bone. Youngsters engage in activities that any parent would recognize, such as tag, hide and seek, and basic skill competitions. But the animals on their playground are completely larger than them. Siku, who is only 8 years old, has declared one of the mammoth calves to be her special friend. She is currently sitting next to the young bull in the grass, and they are both observing 2 enormous beavers as they construct their dam in the stream that flows past the village. Compared to their smaller cousins that live in our world, these beavers are completely different. They are bear-sized, have chisel-like teeth, and have an engineering instinct that rivals that of human builders. The village and the giant beavers have a more cooperative than proprietorship relationship. The ponds and streams that supply fresh water and draw fish are kept up by the beavers. In exchange, the humans share some of the foods that the beavers especially like, such as young shoots and roots that humans collect but don't need for themselves, and defend the beavers' territory from the enormous cave bears that occasionally wander down from the mountains. It took generations to create and preserve this intricate web of relationships. Every species in this valley has established a place for itself through a sort of negotiated coexistence that necessitates ongoing care and adaptation rather than dominance or submission. As is customary during the growing light, the afternoon brings tourists to the village. 3 adults and 2 children lead what looks to be a wounded giant ground sloth as they approach from the south. The humans next to the sloth provide gentle support and encouragement as it moves slowly, favoring its right back leg. They're not strangers, but they're also not villagers. They come from a community 2 days' walk away that was dedicated to caring for the enormous sloths that used to roam these areas in great numbers. In addition to being a creature in need of assistance, the injured animal serves as a bridge between groups of people who have come to understand that they are a part of a wider family that includes species other than their own. In keeping with tradition, Nayeli extends her hands palms up to greet the guests, indicating that she is harmless and does not carry any weapons. The gesture is returned, and soon the entire group is heading toward the village's healing grounds, where animal medicine practitioners practice and store their supplies. Both physically and culturally, the healing grounds hold a unique position in the village. They are situated in a grove of old trees that appear to have existed here since the beginning of time, close to the settlement's center. In addition to offering cover, the trees appear to calm both people and animals. Some residents of the village think that the trees themselves have therapeutic properties. Others believe it's just that the grove maintains optimal recovery conditions by remaining warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. Between these opinions is most likely where the truth lies. The injured sloth is examined by Jorik, the village's expert healer, using hands that have learned to read trauma and pain just by touch. Despite its size and powerful claws, the sloth is remarkably patient during the examination. The villagers have discovered that these animals are inherently kind unless they are in danger or defending their young. This one appears to be aware that people are attempting to assist it. It looks like a deep cut that might have resulted from falling onto jagged rocks. The animal is clearly uncomfortable and moves slowly, which can be explained by the infection. Jorik uses fungi and herbs that he learned how to collect and prepare from his teachers to make a poultice. Both humans and animals can benefit from some of these treatments. Others are species specific, acquired over many generations through meticulous observation and the occasional tragic error. Jorik tells the tale of how his people initially discovered how to cure the enormous ground sloths while he is at work. Perhaps 50 years ago, during a particularly severe winter, a small group of sloths were stranded in a canyon by an avalanche. After all, why risk human lives for creatures that weren't even under human control? The humans could have left them to their fate. However, the humans were prompted to act by the way the stranded sloths cried out to one another, as well as by their apparent distress and intelligence. They planned a rescue and cleared enough rock for the sloths to escape using wooden levers and ropes. Instead of abandoning the animal that had suffered severe injuries in the avalanche, the humans brought it back to their community and made an effort to treat its injuries. They learned a lot about the physiology and behavior of sloths from the process. More significantly, the creature appeared to recall what the humans had done even after it recovered. It didn't go very far when it was at last strong enough to go back into the wild. It stayed close to the human settlement, and when other sloths in the area became injured or ill, word somehow got to this first patient who would lead the sick to the humans for assistance. This relationship developed into something special over time. The sloths started exchanging information about which roots and plants were safe to eat and which were not. Their digestive systems were capable of processing foods that humans would find poisonous, but they were also able to find safe substitutes that people had never thought of. Humans reciprocated by offering medical attention and defense against the enormous predators that even enormous ground sloths occasionally couldn't repel on their own. The injured sloth appears to be getting better as evening draws near. Much of the infection has been drawn out by the poultice, and the animal is breathing more easily now. The prognosis is good, but treatment will take a few more days. The guests from the southern settlement are cordially invited to remain in the village while their companion recovers. As usual, the evening meal is a communal event. Both residents and guests are seated at long tables made of split logs, and the food symbolizes the abundance that results from coexisting peacefully with the environment. Mammoth milk cheese, fish from the beaver ponds, berries and nuts collected from the forest, and vegetables cultivated in gardens fertilized with mammoth dung and strategically positioned close to the dwellings to keep out smaller herbivores. The villagers brew fermented berry wine in ceramic pots, and as the meal goes on, stories start to flow as freely. In addition to others they have met along the way, the visitors share news from their settlement. By caring for a herd of giant deer that roams between their lands, 3 villages to the east are reportedly forming a new alliance. Strange tracks have been reported to have been discovered close to the northern mountains. These could be the remains of a species that is believed to be extinct, even in this world where extinction appears to have been avoided. Old Henrik, whose memory goes back farther than anyone else's, recounts the Great Choice story once more, but he does so in a unique way each time, as though the tale were a living entity that evolved and changed with each retelling. Instead of merely hunting the megafauna to extinction, it tells the tale of how their ancestors managed to coexist with them. Humans realized they were at a crossroads at one point, Henrik said. They were extremely proficient hunters thanks to the tools and methods they had developed. They were capable of defeating animals that were many times their size, and they had started to do so successfully that some species were going extinct. They had to decide whether to keep going in this direction and use their powers to assert their superiority over all other species, or to look for an alternative. Dominance was argued for by some. Humans were shrewd and flexible. They could change the world to their benefit if they could get rid of possible rivals and dangers. Others argued for an alternative strategy, one that acknowledged the enormous creatures in their environment as partners in the intricate dance of life that maintained the world's equilibrium rather than just as resources to be eaten. The argument was not easily or swiftly resolved. For generations, it was unclear what would happen because different groups made different decisions. However, communities that opted for partnership gradually started to prosper in ways that those that opted for dominance did not, through trial and error, success and failure. The partnership approach necessitated learning new abilities. Humans had to learn how to comprehend, interact with, and take care of animals rather than just how to hunt them. They had to learn psychology and behavior, medicine and nutrition, and the delicate art of interspecies negotiation. However, the benefits were remarkable. A mammoth was more valuable alive than dead because it offered labor, transportation, and cooperation in tasks that no human could complete on their own, in addition to milk and the occasional fur. Living water management systems were created by giant beavers. Ground sloths developed into walking botanical encyclopedias. When properly understood and respected, even the dreadful cave bears proved to be excellent collaborators for some kinds of work. The fire in the middle of the village burns low as Henrik's story comes to a close, creating dancing shadows on the faces surrounding it. Stormwalker trumpets softly in the distance, and other mammoths from settlements over the horizon respond to her call. This village is connected to a network of communities throughout the continent by this sound, which unites them all in their shared vision of a world in which megafauna and humans coexist as allies rather than adversaries. The villagers gradually start to return to their homes as the fire goes out and the stars come out. However, some people still exist, especially the younger adults, who frequently use these evenings to talk about their own dreams and stories. As usual, the topic of discussion shifts to the future tonight. A young woman named Mira talks about her dream of creating new trade routes that would link far-flung communities. Mira has demonstrated remarkable skill in working with the giant deer that come to the village every spring. She imagines mammoth-led caravans that can transport goods over great distances and through difficult-to-navigate terrain. Her friend Jorik the Younger, who is named after the healer but is unrelated, discusses his selective breeding experiments in an attempt to create mammoth strains that might be smaller and better suited for particular jobs. It's a contentious endeavor because some people feel that altering the ancient animals in any way betrays the alliance that has so successfully benefited both species. Others contend that helping these species adjust to a changing environment is just another example of cooperation, and that adaptation and change are inherent aspects of life. A low rumbling sound that seems to originate from the earth itself breaks up the conversation. Everyone freezes for a second, listening carefully. The 8-year-old Siku, who has made friends with the mammoth calf, then bursts into happy laughter. She points to the sleeping area where the young mammoth lies on his side, his legs twitching as though he were running while he slept. "He's dreaming again," she says. The rumbling sound is his sleep trumpeting, which the villagers have come to associate with especially vivid mammoth dreams. The tense moment gives way to laughter. There are moments of unadulterated joy that remind everyone why they chose this path, even in a world where humans coexist with animals that could easily kill them. Whatever dreams the young mammoth may have, they appear to be joyful ones. The final discussions around the fire shift to more subdued topics as the night grows darker. Work plans for tomorrow, worries about relatives in other communities, and soft rumors of romances blossoming and alliances developing between people and their animal companions. Even these discussions eventually wane as the village falls asleep. It's not a quiet sleep though. The breathing of sleeping mammoths, the splash of enormous beavers laboring in the moonlight, and the distant cry of a cave bear resonating from the mountains are just a few of the sounds that fill the night and would be incomprehensible to our contemporary ears. These are not the sounds of peril, but rather of a world in which all living things are aware of their place and function within the larger scheme of things. For a while longer, Nayeli lies awake in her home, listening to these night sounds and reflecting on the day that has gone by. The wounded sloth is recovering nicely. The mammoth pregnancy is developing as it should. The kids are becoming resilient and acquiring the abilities necessary to uphold the alliances their forefathers formed. However, she also considers the difficulties that will come. Though not significantly, there has been a noticeable change in the climate. The summers are getting a little warmer and the winters are getting a little shorter. The ranges of some plant species and the animal species that rely on them are changing. In addition to exposing new areas, the retreating grey ice sheets that still cover portions of the northern continent are altering the weather and wind patterns that people have come to rely on. Both human communities and their animal companions will need to adjust to these changes. When migrating to new areas, some species might require assistance, others might require help adjusting to new environmental factors or food sources. As the world around them changes, the partnerships that once seemed so solid and long-lasting might need to be renegotiated. However, Nayeli is not depressed by these difficulties. In the past, her people have overcome obstacles by banding together. She has discovered that the secret is to view change as a chance to improve relationships and foster understanding rather than as something to be feared or resisted. As she drifts off to sleep, she considers Stormwalker's unborn calf and the environment that the young mammoth will grow up in. Will the ice sheets keep receding in this world? Will the ecological niches created by climate change be filled by new species? Will it be necessary for people and their partners to acquire new abilities, collaborate in new ways, and comprehend one another in new ways? She finds the questions fascinating rather than concerning. After all, every generation encounters changes and manages to adjust while maintaining the most essential aspects of life. She feels that the fundamental idea that has led her people for many generations, the understanding that humans are not distinct from the natural world, but rather a part of it, and that their success is dependent on the success of every other species they coexist with, is more significant than any specific species or climate arrangement. As always, morning returns with fresh opportunities and challenges. To the relief of its human companions, the injured sloth continues to show signs of recovery. Stormwalker appears more agitated than normal, which raises the possibility that her time is running out. After repairing their dam, the giant beavers created a new pond that will serve as a home for fish and water birds. But there's also something surprising this morning. From the west, a lone traveler leads a creature that has never been seen in the village. It is obviously a horse, but it is bigger than any horse that has ever existed. It has a coat that changes color in the sun and a demeanor that conveys intelligence and self-reliance. Equally fascinating is the traveler herself. No one can identify the materials used to make her clothes, and the tattoos on her skin are not typical of any known settlement. Although the underlying language appears familiar, her accent is so thick that it is nearly impossible to understand what she is saying. She comes from far to the west, beyond the great mountains that most of them have never seen. The villagers discover after careful questioning and patient repetition. She explains that Although her people have coexisted peacefully with these massive horses for many generations, their homeland is changing in ways that make it challenging for them to maintain their traditional way of life. She claims that the horses are some of the last of their kind. The majority of their preferred habitat has been lost due to climate change, and the population that remains is too small to survive on its own without help. In order to find communities that might be willing to give some of the horses new homes and possibly share knowledge about how to help species adapt to changing conditions, her people have sent her eastward. Nayeli had been contemplating just such a challenge the previous evening. This species is in crisis, and its human partner is bringing it here to ask for cooperation in solving a problem that impacts both the human and animal communities, rather than charity. The proposal is discussed by the village council. It's a group of people whose knowledge and experience have gained them the respect of their neighbors, not a formal council in the sense that we might think of it. With the injured sloth sleeping soundly close by and the enigmatic horse grazing beneath the watchful gaze of several inquisitive kids, they sit in a circle in the healing grove under the shade of the old trees. Practical issues are raised in the discussion that follows. Do they have the means to care for more large animals? Do they know enough about how horses behave and what they need to take care of? How quickly could they learn what they would need to learn? However, the discussion goes beyond pragmatic issues. Fundamentally, the question is whether they have an obligation to assist in the preservation of endangered species, even if those species are distant and have no historical ties to their community. Some contend that their primary obligations are to their own community and current animal partners. They have learned to coexist peacefully with the surrounding species for generations. Taking on additional duties might upset that balance and jeopardize everything they have worked so hard to achieve. Others note that when they initially started forming alliances with megafauna, their ancestors had to make similar choices. Instead of concentrating solely on their immediate survival, those early humans decided to take chances in order to achieve a greater goal. Maybe it's time for their generation to make similar decisions. With breaks for meals and taking care of other daily responsibilities, the conversation lasts all morning and into the afternoon. A consensus slowly starts to form. Due to their limited resources and expertise, they are unable to take in all of the Western horses. However, they can take in a few, get to know their needs, and possibly use them as a springboard to establish other populations in communities with different capacities and resources. More significantly, they can impart their knowledge about assisting species in adapting to their changing environment. Their encounters with the mammoths, the beavers, and the enormous ground sloths have taught them methods that may be useful for horses and other animals dealing with comparable difficulties. The Western visitor accepts the village's offer as the sun sets on the second day, clearly relieved and appreciative. Two of her horses, both young females who could eventually add to a breeding population, will be left here. In exchange, she will bring with her extensive understanding of adaptation strategies, as well as assurances of continued assistance and communication. The evening meal turns into a celebration of the new partnership and the ideal it stands for. Survival in a world that is constantly changing depends more on collaboration, communication, and a readiness to support one another in adjusting to new situations than it does on isolation or resource hoarding. The Western traveler tells tales of her homeland and the struggles her people face as the meal comes to an end. The distribution of plants and the flow of rivers are changing as a result of the great mountains surrounding their valley losing their glaciers. While some species find it difficult to adjust, others are flourishing in the new environment. Her people have experienced failures that have taught them hard lessons about the limits of intervention, but they have also had some successes in aiding species transition. The villagers, who have witnessed comparable changes in their own area, find great resonance in her stories. Beyond the immediate horse arrangement, bonds are formed through shared experiences. By the end of the evening, the foundation for a much more extensive relationship between the two communities has been established, one that may offer reciprocal assistance as both deal with the difficulties of a changing global environment. There is a different kind of drama on the third morning. As the sun rises, the pregnant mammoth stormwalker goes into labor. This is the moment that Kale and the other beast speakers have been dreading and preparing for. They are very knowledgeable about caring for adult mammoths, but they have never assisted in a mammoth's birth from beginning to end, and giving birth is always dangerous. There are similarities and differences between the process and human birth, similar in that it calls for endurance, encouragement, and the ability to step in if issues develop. The scale is significantly larger, and the typical rhythms and sounds are not like anything that people have ever heard. With the help of the other mammoths, who appear to comprehend their part in the process, Stormwalker works through the morning with amazing poise. The villagers congregate at a respectful distance, providing support by being present without crowding or interfering unless absolutely necessary. When the birth finally takes place, it happens quickly and dramatically. A tiny, damp figure is lying in the grass behind Stormwalker, already straining to stand on unsteady legs, and then she is straining with the effort of labor. Many people are moved to tears by the sight, not only because of the miracle of new life, but also because this birth signifies the survival of a species that might have easily gone extinct. The male calf appears healthy and alert, despite being smaller than anticipated. He was able to stand and find his way to his mother's milk in less than an hour. Exhausted but seemingly in good health, Stormwalker shows the same patience she has displayed throughout her pregnancy as she leads him through his first feeding. Many people in the village realize that this is an unprecedented moment as word of the successful birth spreads. Since the beginning of the species' evolution, this might be the first mammoth to be born solely in human care. In contrast to the hunters his wild ancestors learned to fear, the calf will grow up knowing humans as partners and protectors. However, the moment is significant in more ways than one. The successful birth demonstrates that humans can sustain megafauna reproduction in addition to their survival. This creates opportunities that were never given much thought by earlier generations. Could they aid in the recovery of endangered species? Could they steer the development of human-animal relationships in ways that are advantageous to both parties? The acknowledgement of new responsibilities tempers the celebrations that follow the birth, which continue long into the evening. No human currently has the knowledge and abilities needed to raise a mammoth calf. As Stormwalker assumes the role of mother, with all the protective instincts that go along with it, the village's relationship with her will need to change. Longer-term questions will also require answers. As the young mammoth matures and forms its own personality, how will it interact with people? Will it have to work out its own terms, or will it accept the partnership arrangements that its mother has lived under? When it reaches breeding age, will it be able to build suitable relationships with possible mates, or will its unique background cause problems? Although there are currently no answers to these questions, they illustrate the types of difficulties that the village has come to welcome. Every new advancement, effective modification, and unanticipated difficulty contributes to the body of knowledge that supports the success of all their collaborations. The village's daily activities, which include encounters with creatures that most of human history would consider mythical, return to something approaching routine as the fourth day dawns. Although its human companions choose to stay in the village for a few more days to make sure the healing process is finished, the injured sloth is now strong enough to walk on its own. Under his mother's care and the community's attentive watch, the newborn mammoth calf, now known as Little Thunder for his startlingly loud vocalizations, continues to flourish. As the Westerner gets ready to leave, she realizes that she is no longer traveling alone. Two young villagers who have both worked with large animals before have offered to go with her some of the way home. They will assist in caring for the horses she is leaving behind and will return to her people with comprehensive knowledge of the adaptation methods created in this valley. More significantly, they will act as living connections between communities that might need to help one another in ways they haven't yet thought of. These past few days have seen a wide range of discussions, from philosophical issues regarding the relationship between humans and nature to practical animal husbandry. The question of whether their way of life could be expanded to accommodate larger populations is one that is frequently raised. Small towns where people know one another and where the number of animals can be controlled by close personal ties and close observation are ideal for the partnership approach. However, what would happen if the current size of human populations were exceeded? Could a town of 300 or a city of 3,000 be governed by the same rules that govern a village of 30? The partnership model, according to some, has inherent limitations. Individual animal-human relationships take time and care that cannot be sustained on a larger scale. Others contend that by enabling more specialization and advanced care systems, larger populations may actually increase the viability of some partnerships. The question isn't scholarly. Rumor has it that communities to the south have expanded significantly while retaining their animal alliances. If those rumors are accurate, they imply that the ideas cultivated in tiny communities like this one may have more uses than anyone has yet to recognize. However, there are also stories that serve as warnings. Tragic outcomes for both people and animals can be found in tales of communities that attempted to grow too rapidly and took on more animals than they could adequately care for. At larger scales, it can be much more difficult to maintain the balance that seems so natural in small groups, and the consequences of failure are proportionately more severe. As the morning goes on, these theoretical conversations are anchored in the day-to-day tasks. The enormous beavers need care. They need help fixing a leak in one of their dams, and they appear to prefer human help. Humans must perform this delicate work in cold water with animals whose size and strength could easily injure anyone who makes a thoughtless move. However, the beavers are exceptionally kind companions, employing their enormous fangs with surgical accuracy and somehow coordinating their activities with human assistants who move considerably more slowly and erratically than their own. When the repair is finished, both species appear to be happy with the outcome, even though it takes the majority of the morning. The project is made possible by the beavers' natural strength and engineering instincts, while the humans have contributed the planning abilities and fine motor control that the beavers lack. The villagers occasionally forget how extraordinary this type of interspecies cooperation would seem to most humans throughout history, because it has become so commonplace. A fundamental shift in perspective regarding the relationship between humans and the natural world is represented by the notion that creatures of different species could collaborate as true partners, each contributing their special skills to achieve common objectives. A different kind of visitor arrives in the afternoon, a family of cave bears that the locals haven't seen in months. In contrast to beavers and mammoths, these are not partners. The kind of close working relationships that characterize village life are not possible for cave bears because they are too solitary and unpredictable. However, they are also not adversaries. Between the human population and the bears that occasionally traverse their territory, a sophisticated understanding has grown over time. The bears offer valuable services that are not available in any other way. They can identify some kinds of medicinal plants that humans have trouble finding thanks to their acute sense of smell. They can clear landslides or dig caverns that offer refuge in inclement weather thanks to their strength and digging prowess. In exchange, people share foods that bears especially like and tend to injuries that bears are unable to heal on their own. However, the relationship necessitates careful management and ongoing attention. Even when cave bears are attempting to be helpful, they are dangerous creatures, and what they consider helpful doesn't always match what humans would consider helpful. When a bear moves boulders to clear a blocked stream, it may also reroute the water in ways that humans would prefer to keep dry in flood areas. Curiosity about the newcomers to the village appears to be the driving force behind the current visit. The lead bear, a massive female known to the villagers as Shadow Walker, approaches the horse enclosure politely, but clearly shows interest. The horses, obviously uneasy but not in a panic, gaze at the bear with the kind of focus that indicates they have seen such animals before. Shadow Walker examines the horses in a methodical and comprehensive manner. She repeatedly goes around the enclosure, using her sensitive nose to test the air and occasionally making quiet huffing noises that appear to be a kind of communication. The horse's soft nickering in response indicates that whatever conversation is going on is not antagonistic. Perhaps an hour later, Shadow Walker appears content with her research. Through a complicated series of sounds and gestures, she expresses her approval of the new arrangements as she approaches the area where a number of villagers have been observing the interaction. Although it took years to develop, this type of diplomacy has a significant purpose. The bear's willingness to adapt to changes in the valley helps prevent those changes from upsetting the larger ecosystem in ways that could have an impact on everyone. The bear family leaves as silently as they came, leaving a gift that exemplifies the high level of interspecies communication in this valley as evening draws near. Shadow Walker has left a little heap of herbs and roots near the village's food storage area, which the villagers don't immediately recognize. It turns out that these rare plants, which only grow in the high mountains where bears spend most of their time, have potent healing qualities. The bear's profound comprehension of human needs and values is demonstrated by this gift. They have made the effort to bring examples from their own area because they are aware that the villagers value new medicinal plants. The bears have effectively paid in advance for any future services they might require from the humans, so it's also a kind of trade. Discussion of the day's events and conjecture about their potential implications for the future liven up the evening meal. Ideas for additional projects that could profit from human-beaver cooperation have been sparked by the successful partnership on the dam repair. Everyone has been reminded by the bear visit of the intricate web of connections that goes well beyond the borders of the village. Additionally, the injured sloth's continued recovery has increased trust in the community's capacity to assist species in adjusting to their changing environment. It may be more difficult to identify the most important development, though. It's the increasing awareness that the community's relationship with nature is entering a new stage. Their ancestors formed alliances based mostly on mutual aid and survival. Relationships founded on a sincere appreciation and respect for the distinct skills and viewpoints that every species contributes to their common ecosystem appear to be something more advanced being developed by the current generation. This evolution is far from finished and didn't happen all at once. However, its effects are evident everywhere. From the informal interactions between kids and mammoth calves to the intricate procedures that control interactions with potentially hazardous animals like cave bears, the village has evolved into a setting where communication between species is not only feasible but commonplace, and where the lines separating the animal and human communities are not rigid but rather flexible. The Western traveler finalizes her departure preparations as the week comes to an end. During her stay, she has gained a lot of knowledge, but perhaps more significantly, she has made relationships that will last beyond her time there. Now that the village has connections to a community hundreds of miles away, there are opportunities for future collaboration and assistance that neither side could have previously envisioned. It appears that the two horses she is leaving behind have settled into their new surroundings quite nicely. Within the daily rhythm of the village, they have developed their own routines and started to build bonds with both human and animal residents. The early indications are positive, but it will take time to ascertain whether these connections can grow into real partnerships. Ceremonies that combine emotional farewell with practical preparation mark her departure. The entire village comes together to wish her a safe journey, and each family gives her something to take with them, such as travel-friendly dried foods, potentially useful tools, or life-saving medications. However, the most priceless presents are intangible: information, relationships, and commitments to future collaboration. Along with her physical supplies, she brings a plethora of innovative ideas and methods that could revolutionize her people's approach to their relationships with animals and the environment as she leads her remaining horses out of the village and follows the route that will return her home across the mountains. Her visit will have far-reaching consequences that could affect species she will never directly encounter and communities she will never see. After she leaves, the village gets back into its routines, but it's not exactly the same as it was a week ago. The dynamic of everyday life has been subtly but significantly altered by the two horses. Their presence has drawn a variety of birds, opening up new avenues for study and observation. Their grazing habits have changed the grass's growth in some places, which could influence other animals' feeding preferences. Some of the smaller mammals that inhabit the area around the village appear to be influenced by their scent as well. Although these changes aren't disruptive, they serve as a reminder that any addition to an ecosystem has repercussions that last for a very long time. The villagers have learned to be aware of these impacts and modify their own conduct accordingly. As climate change continues to change the distribution and behavior of species throughout the region, this skill might become more and more important. The mammoth calf, Little Thunder, keeps growing and changing at a rate that astounds everyone who sees him. He is only a week old, but already he is displaying the intelligence that makes his species such exceptional companions. He appears to be able to identify specific people by sight and smell, reacting to them in different ways depending on how they have interacted with him and his mother in the past. More interestingly, he has started to investigate the limits of his world with the methodical curiosity that distinguishes highly intelligent young mammals. He learns about texture, weight, and flexibility by using his trunk to test various objects. He plays a variety of sounds, ranging from quiet chirps that seem to be intended to attract attention to louder trumpets that may be an attempt to communicate over greater distances. In order to record actions and reactions that could shed light on mammoth psychology and development, Kyle spends hours every day watching and interacting with the young mammoth. In addition to being extremely helpful if other mammoths in the valley give birth, this information is unprecedented in human knowledge because it provides detailed observations of mammoth behavior in a setting where the animals feel supported and safe rather than threatened or defensive. Although challenging, the work is fascinating. New sounds, new behaviors, and fresh proof of the complexity hidden behind those tiny, dark eyes are revealed every day. In addition to his physical development, Little Thunder is also forming his own unique personality, tastes, and perspectives on the world. The villagers are happy about some of these developments. It appears that both species find amusement in the calf's ability to play games with human children, which are gentle competitions of strength and agility. He appears to be aware that his human playmates are smaller and more delicate than he is, as evidenced by his impressive self-control in these exchanges. Some behaviors are more difficult. Little Thunder has started pushing against barriers and fences to test limits. He's learned that he has advantages because of his size in some circumstances, but he doesn't always use those advantages thoughtfully. It turns out that training a mammoth involves a level of patience and ingenuity never before attempted by a human. The way Little Thunder is altering the bond between his mother and the human race, however, may be the most important part of his growth. Since giving birth, Stormwalker has grown more assertive about her needs and preferences and more protective. Instead of merely accepting the plans that others make for her, she has started to choose where she wants to graze and when she wants to engage with people. This change marks a new stage in the relationship between humans and mammoths. The relationship is changing from one that is largely focused on human control of mammoth behavior to one that is more akin to equal partner negotiation. Stormwalker's increased assertiveness is a sign of her confidence in her relationship with humans and her willingness to voice her own priorities within that relationship, not of rebellion or animosity. Humans must also adapt to the changes. In order to anticipate Stormwalker's needs before she has to call for them to be met, Kyle and the other beast speakers are learning to read her moods and preferences more accurately. They are creating new communication channels that enable more intricate exchanges and advanced forms of collaboration. Although the work is hard, it is also very fulfilling. The developing relationship is more complex and nuanced than any relationship that existed prior to Little Thunder's birth. Both parties are gaining knowledge and developing skills that neither would have had on their own. The village starts getting ready for the upcoming colder months as autumn draws near. These preparations, collecting and storing food, repairing shelters, and creating warm clothing, are comparable to those made by human communities throughout history in certain respects. In other respects, however, the preparations are specific to communities that coexist with megafauna. To survive the winter, the mammoths require far more food than the village can produce with conventional means. However, mammoths can also help with gathering in ways that are impossible for humans to do alone. Because of their size and strength, they can reach food sources that are inaccessible to humans, such as high branches, roots buried deep in frozen ground, and fruits and nuts that grow in hazardous areas that are unsafe for people to safely traverse. Species work together to prepare for winter, each contributing in accordance with their skills and receiving in accordance with their requirements. The mammoths assist the humans and the rest of the community in gathering food. In exchange, people assist in preparing and preserving food in ways that increase its shelf life during the coldest months. The giant beavers help by preserving and enhancing the water systems that guarantee a sufficient supply of water during winter droughts and avoid flooding during spring thaws. The scope of the engineering projects they complete together is far greater than what either species could handle on its own, though in some cases they need human assistance, especially when precise tools are required to direct water flow. As winter draws near, even the relationship with the cave bears changes. As they look for food to help them accumulate the fat reserves they need for hibernation, the bears start to show up more regularly. Since well-fed bears are less likely to be dangerous during the months when food becomes scarce, the villagers try to accommodate these requests. Now that it is fully recovered, the injured giant sloth decides to stay with the village instead of going back to its native area. No one who has watched the creature over the past few weeks is surprised by the choice. The sloth has developed close relationships with a number of the people who looked after it while it recovered, and it appears to value the safety and company that come with living in a village. Its existence expands the community's potential in another way. Humans have never fully catalogued the edible and medicinal plants that giant sloths know about. They have the ability to transform some vegetation types that would be poisonous to other species into forms that are safe and nourishing for a greater variety of animals. Because their digestive systems are so effective, the waste products they produce make excellent fertilizer for the village gardens. Most importantly though, the sloth offers an alternative viewpoint on patience and time. Sloths move slowly because they see the world at a different pace, not because they are indolent or ineffective. Instead of noticing changes that happen over hours or days, they notice changes that happen over weeks or months. Their presence in the village acts as an early warning system for changes in the environment that faster moving species might not notice until it is too late to make an effective adaptation. The village changes as the first snows fall. The rhythm of longer nights and shorter days causes a slight slowdown in the pace of daily life. However, for many communities, winter is not the time of dormancy. Rather, it's a time for a variety of activities, such as planning and preparation, storytelling and crafting, and strengthening the bonds that keep the community going during its most trying time. The mammoths appear to love the snow, rolling in it and tossing it at each other and any humans who dare to join in their games with their trunks. Little Thunder clearly enjoys his first snowfall, attempting to catch snowflakes with his trunk and letting out an excited trumpet when he successfully balances tiny snowballs on his head. It takes some time for the horses to get used to the snow and cold because they are from a different climate. However, they quickly adjust, developing thicker coats and learning how to sift through snow to get to the grass below. Their existence opens up new winter travel options, enabling people to stay in touch with other communities, even when walking becomes challenging. Stories abound on winter evenings, and many of the best ones involve human and animal cooperation. Because of its ability to react to specific words and phrases, the giant sloth enhances dramatic scenes in stories with sound effects. By contributing their own vocalizations, the mammoths give the stories a sort of musical accompaniment. During thrilling scenes, the horses even join in, rhythmically stamping their feet. These group storytelling sessions are an example of art forms that genuinely engage multiple species as creative participants rather than just subjects or audiences, which is unprecedented in human culture. Because they incorporate viewpoints and experiences that no single species could offer. The stories that come out of these sessions are unlike anything that humans alone could produce. During these winter evenings, one story comes to light that becomes especially important to the community. It tells the tale of the Great Migration, which is said to have taken place many generations ago when the region's shifting climate compelled all of the species to move to new areas. The narrative claims that the migration was only successful because various species discovered new ways to support one another. Supplies for smaller animals were carried by mammoths. The entire migration was able to cross hazardous waters thanks to the river crossings that giant beavers created. Cave bears shielded vulnerable people from predators that could have killed them. Planning and coordination by humans helped to keep the migration headed in the right direction. The narrative might be entirely mythical, or it might serve to preserve the memory of real-life occurrences from the distant past. Its significance, however, comes from its depiction of what is possible when species cooperate to achieve shared objectives rather than from its historical accuracy. It offers a model for collaboration that goes well beyond the regular alliances that keep village life going. That template becomes more and more pertinent as winter deepens. Everyone has noticed that the climate is changing more quickly. Compared to the seasonal patterns everyone remembers, the winter is warmer than usual, with more rain and less snow. The unusual weather confuses some plants, causing them to bud weeks earlier than usual. Some animals are changing when they migrate or when they hibernate. No one species can handle these changes on its own. Early blooming plants must be shielded from potential late frosts. Coordination of the disorganized animal migration patterns is necessary to avoid territorial and resource disputes. To guarantee that animals who awaken early from their winter slumber can find enough food, the modified hibernation schedules require assistance. The village handles these difficulties by working together and adapting, just like it does with the majority of difficulties. The mammoths protect early budding plants by forming windbreaks with their size and strength. In order to support animals whose schedules have been disturbed, the humans utilize their planning skills to organize food sharing. The giant sloth offers advice on which plants require more time to develop properly and which can be safely harvested early. However, the difficulties also draw attention to the shortcomings of small-scale solutions to major issues. Although the ecosystem is much larger than the village's borders, the village can adjust to changes within its own boundaries. Coordination between communities over great distances and unprecedented resource and knowledge sharing will be necessary for successful climate change adaptation. These bigger questions become more and more prevalent in the discussions around the winter fires. How can the village-level partnership model be expanded to the regional or continental level? How can communities that live hundreds of miles apart coordinate how they react to changes in the environment? How can species with varying habitat requirements and migration patterns be assisted in adapting without causing conflicts with other species? Although there are no simple answers to these questions, they are inspiring new concepts in organization, communication, and transportation that may revolutionize how the human and animal communities deal with environmental issues. These alliances, which started out as straightforward agreements for mutual survival, are developing into something far more ambitious, a coordinated response to planetary change in which several species cooperate as equal partners. This year's early arrival of spring validates everyone's concerns about the changing climate. Weeks before it should, the snow melts, causing flooding in some places and unexpected dryness in others. Although many plants appear stressed by the unusual conditions, the early plant growth that started during the warm winter is still going strong. The way the village has responded to these difficulties shows how much their skills have changed over time. The community now anticipates challenges and plans coordinated responses rather than merely responding to issues as they occur. Beavers adapt their dams to manage atypical water flows. The mammoths assist in moving plants that are having trouble in their original locations to more hospitable areas. Humans organize these activities, keep an eye on their success, and modify their tactics as necessary. The arrival of new refugees, not just the odd injured animal seeking assistance, but whole family groups escaping areas rendered uninhabitable by climate change, may be the most noteworthy development of this unusual spring. A family of giant deer travels from the south, where their customary grazing grounds are unusable due to drought. From the north, where their settlement and animal alliances have been destroyed by unusual flooding, a small group of humans arrives. Although these newcomers put a strain on the village's resources and social structures, they also present chances to broaden the network of connections that has been so beneficial to the community. The knowledge and abilities that each group of refugees brings to the village enhance those that are already there. The village's current animals have never encountered the kinds of vegetation that the giant deer are able to comprehend. The displaced people have water resource management skills that could be useful in a time of erratic precipitation. The partnership model's advantages and disadvantages are made clear by the process of integrating newcomers into the community. Human-animal cooperation principles are effective when forming relationships with new species, but they must be modified for use with larger groups or communities that have their own established organizational patterns. The village practically doubles in size throughout the spring, bringing with it both new opportunities and challenges. Greater specialization is made possible by the larger population. Some people can devote all of their attention to caring for animals, while others focus on growing plants, creating tools, or communicating over long distances. However, a larger population also puts a strain on resources and necessitates new organizational structures to preserve the harmony that was nearly effortless for smaller groups. The alterations lead to a choice that the original village could not have considered. The enlarged community chooses to split as summer draws near, with about half of the people moving to a new settlement in a valley a few days' drive to the east. The division is motivated by the realization that the partnership model may function best when implemented at an ideal scale that maintains the interpersonal relationships that enable cooperation, not by conflict or a lack of resources. Careful management of the division process guarantees that both settlements possess sufficient knowledge of all the fundamental abilities required for interspecies cooperation. Animal families are kept together whenever possible, but some species decide to split up among the settlements, establishing enduring bonds that will facilitate communication and assistance to one another. Both settlements are prospering in their own ways as the summer solstice draws near. With new skills and knowledge acquired from the year's experiences, the original village has reverted to something close to its traditional size. The new settlement is evolving its own personality and methods for overcoming the difficulties associated with interspecies cooperation. Now, a yearling mammoth with a personality as big as his expanding body, Little Thunder, has come to represent both continuity and change. In addition to embodying the adaptability that has enabled these relationships to develop and flourish, he also symbolizes the success of the human-mammoth partnership at its most personal level. His interactions with the new horses show that even species that have never experienced human partnership can benefit from the concepts of interspecies cooperation. The sounds of both communities meld into a symphony that speaks of harmony and plenty as the long summer days transition into the fall. The nickering of horses, the splashing of enormous beavers working on their engineering projects, the quiet chatter of people making plans for the future, and the trumpeting of mammoths all blend together. The intricate web of communications between communities, species, and individuals that maintains this vast community's cohesiveness may be the most important sound, even though it is inaudible to the naked human ear. Messages are carried by species whose ranges extend across the distances between human settlements, following routes created by migratory animals. Through networks that link not only the two villages, but also dozens of communities throughout the continent, information about weather, resource availability, and environmental changes is shared. The partnership model is best exemplified by this network, which coordinates entire ecosystems for adaptation and survival rather than just individual humans and animals. It's a picture of what can happen when relationships founded on respect and a common goal take the place of barriers between species. It's worthwhile to consider what this alternate history might teach us about our own relationship with nature as we come to the end of our journey into this fictional world. In this tale, the villagers' harmony with megafauna was not attained by means of advanced technology or paranormal powers. Patience, observation, respect, and a readiness to view other species as collaborators rather than resources allowed them to succeed. Their problems, such as resource scarcity, climate change, and juggling the demands of the community and individuals, are not all that dissimilar from those we face at home. Their responses, communication, cooperation, and adaptation across large networks might provide us with ideas for how to deal with our own environmental crises. Most significantly, their tale demonstrates that there is no need for dominance or exploitation in the interaction between people and the natural world. It's possible to envision and possibly even to establish partnership-based, mutually beneficial relationships in which animal intelligence and human intelligence work together to accomplish goals that neither could on its own. As our story comes to an end, twilight descends upon both villages, bringing with it the sounds of people assembling for evening meals and animals retiring for the night. A mammoth trumpets a goodnight cry in the distance, and other creatures across the valley respond, starting a communication chain that connects communities and species in a network of connections that crosses continents. Every sunset holds the promise of another day of collaboration, adaptation, and exploration in a world where the Ice Age never truly ended and humans never fully subdued nature. Although we never quite succeeded in creating it, we might still be able to do so with perseverance, discernment, and consideration for all living things on Earth. I appreciate you traveling with me into a possible future world. Perhaps you can picture the sound of mammoth calls reverberating across valleys where people and animals coexist as partners in the great adventure of life on Earth as you fall asleep tonight, wherever you are. I would love to hear about your own dreams of what might still be possible in our world if you found this exploration of what might have been to be enjoyable. Sweet dreams.